All right. 2 weeks in a row. We start like we're supposed to. Excellent. All right, we'll give everybody a minute to get on, and then we'll get started. Well, not a minute to get on because I realize when we transfer this to YouTube that nobody wants to stand here and just look at me staring at a screen for a minute before we start. What's up, Angie? Good to see you. Good evening, Marie. Hi, Laura. Regular Thursday night crowd. I like it. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll start off like we usually do with the COVID numbers, which I think I said in the beginning I wasn't going to do every week, but it just seems to play into what we want to talk about every week. So we had 4 new cases today, brings us up to 192 total since this all started here, and we're still holding at 9 deaths. So I want to talk about what that number, that 192. How we can look at that and what we've had for a little perspective here. So if you look back at the beginning of the month, on April 6th, we had 60 total cases, 60, right? And we had been doubling up to that point every 3 to 5 days. So the numbers were going up quickly. So we look at that doubling rate, right, to see how we're doing, flattening things out. So on April 6th, we had those 60 cases. So again, we want to see what's the doubling time. At what point do we get to 120? And it only took us 8 days. On April 14th, we were just about there, 119 cases. So doubling stretched out to just about a week, right? A little over a week. So to go from that, 119 up to the 238, that would be the next doubling number. We see we're only at 192 today on April 30th, more than 2 weeks later. And if we continue at the 3 or 4 case a day pace that we've had for this week, it would take us another 11 days to get to that doubling point, meaning our doubling would have gone from just over a week at the beginning of this month to now the doubling is out to a month, which is a great sign. Even though that's a hyper-local number, I think it's pretty representative of what's going on countywide. So we can see what we're doing with the stay-at-home is working, and it's flattening out. When we get into what we're going to talk about with the parks and docks and everything opening up going forward, I think that's where we're going to be asking everybody to really be thinking about wearing masks like the CDC recommends and keeping the social distancing that the governor's executive orders tell us we have to keep. Because what we see when we look anywhere else, meaning Europe, whether we look at what happened over on the West Coast in Washington State, the lockdowns did a good job of flattening the curve and bringing the numbers down, but it only brings them down so far. It seems like they get to a certain point and then they just don't go lower. And you think about it, we're all still going to Acme, we're all still going to Wawa. A lot of us are still essential workers, going to work, interacting with our immediate families in the household. So it makes sense that it's not going to drive it, to zero. But what we do know is that whether you're listening to the WHO or CDC, everybody agrees that sick people, someone who's sick, should wear a mask. And in the case of COVID, we know there's a lot of people around who have it. So by definition, they are sick, but they're asymptomatic. So they don't know they have it. And that's the concept behind asking everybody to wear a mask, so that if you have it, you don't know you have it, it's limiting your ability to spread that. So when we're talking about the mask going forward, that's why. So let's get to the exciting news, which is the committee looked at everything that was going on with the numbers and decided that it was time to do a limited, controlled opening of the assets that we have here locally for recreation. So the committee decided to reopen the dock and to open our parks for passive recreation, right? So that doesn't mean sports, doesn't mean contact activities, passive recreation, walking, jogging, running, stuff like that. The playgrounds will remain closed. They are still closed. The skate park is still closed. Project Playground is still closed. And again, it's unrealistic to think that we can have people social distancing at this point on the playground and be able to wipe everything down and sanitize it as much as we would need to. And this also gives us an opportunity, I think, to see how everybody does with kind of maintaining the social distancing and wearing the masks and all that. So the big $1 million question was the rail trail. And Sheriff Mastronardi, who you can get a hold of almost, it seems like any time of day, any day of the week. I shot him a text right before our Facebook Live kicked off, and he let me know that the rail trail is going to be included in the county parks that are opened up on Saturday. Going to have to maintain social distancing, and of course, we're recommending masks for anybody outside. But the rail trail will be included in that, so that's great. We're going to be out there. I'm sure we get them now. People calling, letting us know when people aren't social distancing, when there's a gathering. When people aren't wearing masks. We're going to be out. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. So, of course, with the bathing beach, with the dock, with the parks, there's going to be a lot of people who want to get out. So we'll be out there. We'll be keeping an eye on the social distancing and just trying to make sure that people are adhering to those guidelines. So excited about that. Great news internally for the PD. Every week we talk about the officers that are quarantined and what we have going on there. Earlier this week, our last remaining officer on quarantine who remained asymptomatic, never developed symptoms, he came back to work. So for the first time since this kicked off for us 60-something days ago, we don't have any officers quarantined back to full strength, which is great news. So again, that's a testament to the really the disciplined work that the officers are doing, wearing the masks inside the building, sanitizing the cars every shift, sanitizing the building, all the steps they're taking with PPE to keep themselves from being infected, so that we can continue to work at full strength here. So that's great news going forward. It's also really good timing because as we've gotten to the nicer weather, as it seems like more and more people are out, our call volume has really started to go up. So we look at a daily snapshot every morning, what the last 24 hours look like. And there was a time a couple of weeks ago through March where we were only seeing 23 calls in a 24-hour period, which is a really low number for us, right? And now we've seen, especially the past week, those calls doubling and tripling in a 24-hour period. So now instead of 20 calls, we're seeing 63, 64 calls in a 24-hour period. So we looked at the first 2 weeks of April and compared it to the last 2 weeks of April. So we could see if that proved true when we looked at the whole month. And sure enough, the last 2 weeks of April versus the first 2 weeks, our motor vehicle crashes up 43%. We can all tell there's more people on the road. Our first aid calls are up 20%, 19%. Again, partially that's a good sign for us because it means people aren't afraid to go seek medical attention. And the number that we haven't liked this whole time are domestic violence calls, which were already much too high, are up another 30% the second 2 weeks of April. So our call volume is back to essentially normal, if not a little bit above in spots. So it's good that we've got the department at full strength to address that. I want to touch on, because with more cars on the road, it's inevitably going to happen more and more. But motor vehicle stops when you get pulled over, we've already been experiencing it, and obviously people are working so hard to keep themselves sanitized and away from germs, that beyond the normal nervous experience it is to get pulled over, because it's something that doesn't happen often. Now on top of that, you got a police officer that's taking your license, your insurance, and going back and whether you get a ticket, you don't get a ticket, returning stuff to you that I'm sure you have a concern. Okay, did my license just get contaminated? So just to let you know, on every single motor vehicle stop, just like on any call for service they go on, they're wearing a fresh set of gloves for every motor vehicle stop. They're disinfecting the car. We have the wipes in the car so they can wipe down the keyboard on the in-car computer. So they're keeping the inside of the car sanitized, and they're wearing a fresh set of gloves that they put on when they stop your car, and that they take off when they're done with your car. They have hand sanitizer in the car. So just to kind of let everybody know what the steps are that are going on behind the scenes. And of course, the best way to avoid that entire situation is just not to commit any motor vehicle infractions or speed, and then we don't have to worry about pulling you over. And yes, I'm talking to all you people who make the right turn on red, getting off the parkway onto West Bay Avenue. So So again, just expect us to be we've engaged our new normal here, which is the same police work we were doing, just wearing the PPE and extra sanitizing steps behind the scenes. So that's what we're looking at going forward. I am way ahead of where we would normally be at this point, but that's really all I have. That's all the updates for this week. So I'm going to start scrolling through for the questions, and we'll see what we got this week. We had our best set of questions last week. So all right, lots of highs. I'm scrolling through all the hellos. Hello, everybody. All right, Kathy, we got the rail trail. If you missed that, the rail trail will be open Saturday. Social distancing and masks, please. Sean Folds, isn't running and jogging an active thing? Semantics, I guess, Sean. I would agree with you, but they classify that as passive recreation. For them, the active recreation is, sports, contact sports, softball, any kicking the soccer ball around, stuff like that, they consider active. They classify walking, jogging, running as a passive. And I'll take a moment here since we're a little bit ahead of schedule just to say it. I very much appreciate all the thank yous. Everybody's really gracious about always heaping the thanks during these Facebook Lives. Please understand, I say this all the time. I have the easiest job in the police department because I get to talk to the public. I get to have these exchanges with you. And while we're doing this, there's two squads of cops, one squad on, another one getting ready to get out there, dealing with all this PPE and all the issues and answering calls and really keeping us safe. So and I know your thank yous are kind of steering through to them. So I just want to let you know that we pass those along to them, and they're doing an outstanding job throughout this pandemic. We absolutely would expect. Dirt bikes, Sean, great question. There are very few places that you can legally ride dirt bikes left anywhere around here. That doesn't mean they don't get ridden, but almost everything around here, if it's state land or county land, you're not allowed to ride on it. And if it's private property, you have to have not just permission, but written permission in your possession when you're stopped to be on that land. So I've heard for years and years and years, talk of them opening up a park, a motor park that people go ride their dirt bikes in. Always seems to run into insurance issues, but the reality is there a spot around that you can legally ride your dirt bikes? They are very few and far between. And I know, especially this weekend with the nice weather, that with the state parks opening up, we're going to have the state park police out all over the place monitoring that as well. So kind of a cautionary word for people that are out riding in places where they're not allowed to ride. Good question, Sean. Thanks. Are we finding it, Angela? Are we finding it difficult to secure PPE? That's a great question. We have Lieutenant Jeff Ryan, who's the commander of our support services division, and Lieutenant Jason Carroll, who's the commander of our operations division, which is uniform patrol and crew. They have done an outstanding job since day one, getting after it and going out and tracking down PPE for us. One of the big advantages we have here, or we have had here, we talked about it before, is we get on this very early. We started procuring N95s back on February 22nd. So before this had kind of really popped off here, we were already getting what we needed in to make sure that the officers had what they needed. So we are very adequately stocked with gloves, with masks, or the N95 respirators, with surgical masks, really everything we need to go out and safely conduct business we have. So, and along those lines, we've also gotten help, haven't needed it in the last couple of weeks, but in the beginning, we also got help from county OEM, Office of Emergency Management, who helped disperse PPE out to the different agencies in the county. They're focusing more now on the supplies they're getting to our long-term care facilities, healthcare facilities, the people who are really on the front lines of this, who obviously burn through PPE at a much faster rate than even we do as first responders. Great question. Patrice, good question. Why does the Parkway have signs about mandatory court appearance? I don't know. I honestly don't know what the change that was made there, and I'm sure that's the state wanting to communicate the importance of following the speed limits, so we reduce the burden on emergency services with traffic crashes and everything else while this is going on. Yeah, Jerry, we love making right turns on red in this town, don't we? Again, the officers are out there, and they'll be trying to stay on top of stuff. A lot of streets in this town. Hi, Heather. Thank you. If I'm reading it right, Jackie, it says a 4.5-month-old for a walk on the trail. And should he wear a mask? I'll double check myself after we get done with this, but I believe the recommendation is no masks for anyone under the age of 2. Might be under the age of 4, but I think it's 2. But I'll square myself up on that and get smart on it and post up what the actual number is. Jackie, questions about any activities that were allowed at the dock before it was closed down are allowed now. So, anything crabbing wise that was permitted before, it's all the same rules in place. So, nothing different. Sandy Altamari with the $1 million question. Good question every week. If we see too many people gathering in areas, is there a chance the dock, trail, and parks will close again? I think that's really, again, can't speak for the governor, can't speak for the county freeholders, can't speak for the township committee, but I've got to believe that part of this loosening restrictions is going to be making an assessment of, when we let people out, our first really nice weekend coming up here, are we going to have large groups of people not practicing social distancing, not following the guidelines? And I've got to believe if we're having trouble as a group doing that, I certainly don't think it's out of the question that they would have to maybe take some steps to address that. So we hope that's not the case. We got a long, nice summer ahead of us, and I think our new normal for a good period of time is going to be just wearing masks when we're outside. The last thing I read said mask compliance is about 50% right now. So we'll sure have that creep up as time goes on. But our hope is that everybody's going to follow the guidelines. Good question, though. Nick, yeah, online court. That's my understanding is starting next week. Municipal courts are gonna be back in action, basically doing virtual online court. They haven't opened up the superior courts yet. Christine, good question. Are we allowed to use the benches, gazebo at the dock to sit and relax? Absolutely. Dock is open. Boardwalk on the dock is open. Again, we're just asking people. The dock boardwalk and that little tiny boardwalk at the bathing beach are probably the two examples of it's tough to social distance there. I don't even know that the dock itself, the boardwalk is barely 6 feet wide. So we're just asking that you do your best to make sure you social distance and keep away from people. So no problem sitting on the bench and reading a book, watching the water, the seagulls, whatever it is you like to do. Tom, another lot good questions we get now. Out of confirmed cases in Barnegat, do you know how many of them are recovered? No, I don't, because they don't give us that information. I can look at the New Jersey as a whole, and we can look at active cases versus the total cases that we've had to get that idea. I have not looked this week. Last week when I looked before our Facebook Live, it was somewhere around, I think, 95% of all cases were still considered active. And I don't want to delve off into the politics or anything else, but that there's a real ambiguity in defining what is recovered. We know that we've had people who go to the hospital, test positive for COVID, and then they're not bad enough for them to keep them long duration, so they discharge them and send them home. That gets labeled as a recovered, some of those discharges. I also know people who spent over a month on a respirator, have, what is likely going to be permanent life-altering lung damage, but they go in a check column as recovered. So I know that's something our local Tap Into has been covering, just the fact that there is no clear definition of what recovered is yet. So makes us hard to figure that out. Thanks, Arthur. Appreciate it. Yes, please know that the people who are aggravated with a no turn on red, it bothers me as much, if not more, than it bothers you. Don't believe me? You can call Lieutenant Carroll and ask him how many times I bug him about that. Angela, yeah, always looking out for us, and we appreciate that. Is there anything that the citizens can assist us with? If you want to help us as a PD, help us by socially distancing and wearing your masks. There's no doubt we're going to field a lot of calls Saturday and Sunday about probably gatherings and people not social distancing and not wearing masks. Again, that's what we're here for. We're happy to monitor that and try to keep people following the guidelines. But the more everyone just goes with that program, the more helpful it is for everybody. Yep, biking will be okay on the rail trail starting Saturday, Kathy. Hi, Joni. Can I ask why they need an N95? We were told in the hospitals, as per the CDC, it is only needed during an aerosolized procedure. Okay, I'm going to give you the I don't have to worry about upsetting people or getting reelected answer. The answer is, frankly, we did our own research here in combination with some other chiefs and determined that the best way for us to protect our officers was to put in N95s. I can go down this rabbit hole for a long time, but in January, the World Health Organization told me through a retweet that I didn't need to worry about, COVID at all because it wasn't transferable human to human. I've had the CDC go from telling me I shouldn't wear a mask to maybe I need a mask to now I should wear a mask. So, frankly, this is a 5-month-old illness. Nobody knows. If you want my personal 2 cents, not connected to the agency, I think part of the reason that there was such a shy away from N95s was because everyone knew there weren't enough available for everybody. So, again, at the end of the day, we're going to do what we need to do to protect the officers. And based on the information that we have, that's the best way for us to ensure that our officers stay healthy and don't contract this. And again, I can go back to the peak of where it impacted law enforcement in New Jersey. Just about 800 positive COVID cases. We've had none here. And we've had a state that's had upwards of 3,700 officers quarantined at one time. Some departments up to and beyond 30% of their agency quarantined. And we've never had more than 1 or 2 officers at one time quarantined here throughout it. So that's why. Yep, Barnegat Trail will be open Saturday. DMV business, Vincent, I talked about last week. Everything's extended 2 months. So if your license expired in April, it's good until the end of June. If it's May, it's good until the end of July. And I'm sure the state will update that as we start opening things up here going forward. Can we come inside to pay taxes? Patrice, I don't think they're letting people come inside to pay taxes. I think they're only accepting them mailed in. Doreen, if you don't wear a mask in public, do you get a summons? No, there's no requirement to wear masks. It's a recommendation. So I've said this a couple of times. We're not going to be not the mask police. Frankly, it goes just like back to the trying to stay at home. The better compliance we get with wearing masks and social distancing, chances are the better we do with keeping these numbers down and getting back to having things fully opened up. Arthur, I do not know when the vehicle inspections will begin. I would hope that not. I would hope. I would think that's a couple of months off at this point. Are the higher COVIDs from Barnegat nursing home? Our COVID positives are spread pretty well throughout the town. We don't have any large outbreak at the nursing center in town like some do. You can go on the Ocean County Health Department's website. Has some really good data, and they have the long. Also, the state health department website has long-term care facility information right on there, so you can see exactly how many cases there are in the different long-term care facilities. Thank you. Yep, for reminding me. A couple of you who posted it. There's a drop box outside of town hall that you can drop your tax payments. Thank you. Yes, biking on the rail trail is good, Kathleen. All right, we're somewhere around 5 to 10 minutes ahead of where we usually wrap up and catch up with all the questions. So I'll give it another minute here. If anybody's got any last minute questions, I'll actually try to scroll back a little and see if I missed any, because these always kind of populate here in a delayed way, and I end up scrolling over some of them. What's up, Leo? I see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well out there. All right, folks. Another really productive night here. Thank you for the really good questions. It's helpful in getting information out there to people. We'll leave this posted up on the Facebook page. We'll link this, put it on YouTube, and link it out as well. And then everybody have a good, safe week. Get out there and safely enjoy everything that is opened up this weekend. Looks like it's going to be a really nice weekend. And everybody have a great week, and we'll see everybody next Thursday night. All right, take care. Be safe.